welcome to this afternoon's session of Learn Lounge. We're Springpod, an early careers network, helping young people make more informed choices when it comes to their future careers. And Learn Lounge is just part of that mission for us. Now, through this, we'll bring some influential speakers with incredible stories right to you. So there's plenty to tune in for and even be inspired by. We've had some absolutely incredible speakers, including the inventor of the world's fastest jet suit, the real-life Iron Man, Richard Browning. And this morning we had the executive director of the Equality Trust, Dr. Vonda Viporska. And we've had many, many more as well. And like I said, you can catch those on demand on the website. My name's Joe, and I'll be hosting today's session of Learn Lounge. Just a couple of pointers before we start. The talk should last around 40 minutes, including the Q&A. So please do ask questions to our guests. They'd absolutely love to answer them. And remember to tag us on social media with #LearnLounge. Let people know that you're watching. And finally, we'll be raising money for the Children's Trust. So please do donate as much or as little as you possibly can. And we'll give you the link to donate to that at the end of today's presentation. Now, this afternoon, we're joined by the Chief Technical Officer of Conjur, Chris Tingley. He is a serial entrepreneur, as he has a successful career spanning hardware and software engineering across a huge range of technology startups, many of which you'll probably know. Now, Chris is going to take us through his successful career journey, going right back to how he was at school to now being part of some of the most successful tech startups in the country. And lucky for you, he's also going to share some brilliant insights and resources that will help any young person looking to get started in the tech industry. And he's going to share with us some of his top tips and tricks for how to build a career in technology. Chris, welcome to Learn Lounge. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Joe.
Right, I'll pass over to you. The ocean of skills that exist in tech.
Thanks very much, Joe, and thanks very much to Learn Lounge for inviting me along. It's an absolute honour to be alongside some of the other fantastic speakers that you've had over the last few weeks, and really encourage you to go and watch some of that stuff if you haven't already. So this afternoon I want to talk a little about my kind of journey in technology and where that started from, and some of the things that I've learned from that, and how you can, follow a similar path or a different path. It doesn't really matter, but some of the things that I've learned along the way. So as Joe said, I'm Chris Tingley, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer, CTO, at a company called Conjur. And Conjur is an agency business. So we work on behalf of other companies to help them build products. Digital products, so that can be websites, mobile apps. We do a lot of work with automotive companies and design and develop the applications that go inside the vehicle themselves. So any kind of software around that. And my job as the Chief Technology Officer really is to lead the engineering side of our business. So our business is roughly split in half between technology and creativity. And my job is to lead the technology side of that business, the team that we have there, and the clients that we work with and the suppliers that we work with, and help bring all of those things together along with our creative team to build some great products. So some people refer to me as a serial entrepreneur, not a kind of term I use myself, but I'm very honored that people use that for me. And what that kind of means, I guess, is that I'm involved in lots of different types of businesses, and some of which I've started myself and some of which I've helped other people start. And I think that's a really popular kind of career choice now. Like, it's not as common these days, I think, for you to go into one job and do that for 50 years and retire. That's not to say that you can't, and loads of people enjoy that kind of route, but you don't have to do that. And lots of people now have this kind of portfolio of jobs that they do, either at one time through their career or throughout their career as a whole. And that's the path that I've chosen. There's lots of different companies that I'm involved with. So one is the agency that I founded, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. I'm involved in another couple of technology startups that are really early stage. So they've only been going, a few months or a year or so. So they're really early on. And then I also work with some bigger businesses that are multinationals that you would have heard of, and they're kind of household names. And what I want to talk about over the next sort of 20 minutes or so is my journey and how I got there. So through the talk, I want to sort of kind of talk around these three kind of themes, and these are things that I kind of want you to have in your mind while I'm kind of telling you some of the stories about what I've done. And they are passion, firstly. I think being passionate about whatever you do, be it your career and your work or your social life or any mix of in between that, I think is super important. And especially when it comes to employability, because if you can show that passion around what you do, you're going to appear to be someone that really wants to do that job. And I think there's a quote which says, you know, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And might be a bit corny, but I think it's totally true. Like, if you really enjoy what you do, it won't feel so much like work, and you'll want to get out of bed every morning and go and do it and go and change the world. When it comes to kind of technology, tinkering and playing is super important. There's of course lots that we need to learn through education and books and the internet and reading magazines and the news around what's happening in technology. But to really kind of crystallize that inside your brain, there's no better way than just kind of doing it. And we're lucky with technology now that it's at such a price point. It's so cheap for you to go out and buy like a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino and connect it up to your computer and write some code and make it do something. And not only is that incredibly rewarding to be able to do that, but also it's a great way to kind of concrete in some of that knowledge that you might be learning at school or college or university. Throughout everything that you do, I believe that life has this balance between what you put in and what you put out. And one of the stories that I'll mention a bit later is how I came to that realization. But if you want to do well, you have to work hard. Like, it's very rare that you're given handouts and freebies. So if you want to achieve something, it's just about working hard and putting the effort in. And then finally, the final theme is around craft. And a lot of people see technology as like a really technical thing that has kind of no artistry to it or no craft to it. And I completely disagree with that. Like, technology is a craft, just like cooking or learning an instrument. Like, there's bits that you need to learn and you need to know. To play the piano, you have to know where to put your keys and which notes to play in what order. But there's an artistry and a craft to it as well. You can improvise. The way that you interpret the music can be different. And that's just the same in technology. Like, there's ways of doing things, but also it's your interpretation of it as well and what you're building using that technology. And that's where the craft of it comes in. So I think there's this connection between this natural connection between design and creativity and technology. So my background, typical kind of education, kind of really. So I went to school, I did my GCSEs, and I was fortunate I did pretty well in those. And then I was also fortunate that the summer I finished those, my parents moved to a local town, and that town was where my school and college was. And lots more friends as well, and things to do. I grew up in a tiny village where there was not much to do, and it was great because the biggest opportunity I had there was to work, and I really wanted to work. At home, I was tinkering around, making some websites, you know, getting magazines that had code and projects in them, and I had one of these BBC microcomputers that I'm not entirely sure even where it came from. And it had no hard disk drive and no floppy drive. So I'd switch it on a Saturday morning, and I'd grab a magazine and I'd copy some code in, and I'd learn how it worked, and I'd change it all around again. And then I'd switch it off on Saturday night when I went to bed, and on Sunday I'd turn it back on again and it was all gone. And so, you know, if nothing else, it taught me to type really quickly because I had to copy so much stuff all the time. But also that repetition was also really useful and helped me kind of learn a lot of the stuff off the top of my head that made it really quick for me to kind of do that stuff. So yeah, so I was really looking forward to getting any sort of job in computing, and So that summer I grabbed the Yellow Pages. I don't know if how many of you are old enough to remember what the Yellow Pages was. But it was a directory of phone numbers. It was a bit like the internet, but in a book. I looked through it and I found all the computer companies that were in this town, of which there were 2. And I wrote up a CV. I'm not sure exactly how I knew what a CV was, but I wrote it up, and I hadn't done much in my life by that point. So it was a couple of paragraphs of text, and I printed it off. And I went to go and see this first business, and I asked to speak to the boss, and I remember being incredibly nervous. But he was a really lovely guy called Alan, and we chatted for ages. And I said, I think I can help you build a website and kind of do all this stuff for your business, and I want to learn more about computers and stuff like that. And he said, that sounds great. I'd love you to do that. But what I really need is my building painted. And it was a pretty big building. And so I spent most of the rest of the summer, every morning, erecting the scaffolding, painting the outside of the building, at night, kind of putting it away. And I did that for weeks on end until I painted the whole building. And at the end of that, he said, well, now I know that you really want it, because you've shown that you really want to do this job. And again, that's the kind of hard work and the effort thing. And it might not be exactly what you want to achieve at that point, but if it's something that helps you get there, then you've still got to put the hard work in. And it was great. I worked there for a couple of years while I was at college, and I learned a load of stuff, and I kind of helped them as a business and wrote their website and helped write bits of software and stuff like that. And then the next big lesson, I guess, for me was when I finished my A-levels, and I got nowhere near the grades that I was expected to get, either by myself or my teachers. And so I was really disappointed, because there was this course that I wanted to do and this university that I wanted to go to, and I didn't get the grades to get into it. But nevertheless, through clearing and speaking to them on the phone and a bit of pleading, they gave me a second chance, really, and said, go and do this foundation course, and if you pass the first year, we'll move you on to the degree course you want to do. And so that's what I did, and I worked super hard that year, and it was easy to do that because everyone else on that course was in the same boat. And they were all super motivated to get through that year and get onto the course that they wanted to do. So that was my university life. I did a foundation degree, I did an undergraduate degree, and I went on to do a master's degree, all at the same university. And in my master's year, in the department, there were 4 people that got first-class degrees, which is the highest mark that you can get at university. And all of those 4 people did foundation year degrees. And so the difference was that we just knew how to work and how hard we had to put and how much effort we had to put in to make sure that we got out at the end of it what we wanted to get out of it. So that really kind of galvanized that kind of work ethic in me. And although it wasn't the kind of path that I wanted to take, actually it was such a help to kind of learn that lesson around having to work hard. So after university, I kind of started my career, and I was quite lucky that the last year or so of university, I was working for an agency part-time, and I carried on working there after I graduated, and I did that for a few months, and realised it probably wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And again, I think this was another one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about, which is it's really hard to know what you want to do. And lots of people ask you that, your gran will say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you'll be like, oh, I don't know. And that's fine. And actually, one of the things that's really helpful along your journey is to figure out what you don't like doing. And that job was great. I learned a lot in it, but I didn't really enjoy it. And so I looked for something else, and this is when I kind of started to work at really small companies and startups. And then after working at the first startup, I was like, this is really fun. This is what I enjoyed doing. The early stage of companies, that embryonic kind of stage. And there's just this buzz at these kind of companies, and everyone chips in, and you can kind of wear lots of different hats and kind of do different things. And it's really
I suppose as well, if you're working in a startup, you're really working from the ground up. You're there from the offset when all the important decisions are being made, when the direction is being chosen for this business, and you're really, in the midst of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to help kind of shape a lot, and you see how these decisions are made. And some of them are good decisions and some of them bad decisions, but you get to see how that plays out. So you learn stuff really quickly as well. So that was great. And during that time of kind of having the 9 to 5, I was still working on my little side projects and doing bits and pieces here and there. And through a website I was building, I got to know a friend of mine, and who's now one of my business partners. And we did that for a while, and then through that website we knew that we needed some design skills. So I'm not a very good designer, so we knew we needed that, and then we did a bunch of networking, and we found another guy called Sam, who's now my third business partner. And after working together for a few months on this kind of website, we all realized that we really enjoyed working together, and we were really energized by that. And we'd all come from slightly different backgrounds, and we wanted to kind of formalize that and build our own agency, and that's what we did. So that was sort of 11 years ago. We founded Conjure, and we've grown it since then. And on the kind of the entrepreneurial side of this, I guess even whilst I've had my own business, I've been interested in other bits and pieces, because I think the variety of what you do is also great for technology. Because when you build products, you're building products for people in certain circumstances. So let's say you're building a piece of software for a supermarket that's used on the till, like a point of service system. If years ago you worked in a supermarket or in a shop and you've used one of those tills, you've got some knowledge about what they do and how they work, and that's super useful. The same with traveling and languages. If you know other languages and other cultures, that helps you build software that might be used in another part of the world. And language is a really interesting obvious kind of difference between something which we might make here and something which we might make in Germany, say. But actually there's cultural differences as well. So you can kind of learn the language things, but if you've never really visited and you never really experienced it, you can't put your experiences into those products. So the variety of stuff that you do is actually really really useful in technology. So that kind of leads into kind of making digital stuff and the variety of roles that are available when you follow a technology path. Because actually technology is so multifaceted. There's lots of different languages, there's lots of different platforms, there's software, there's hardware, and there's stuff in between. So there's no kind of predefined route to this kind of stuff. And again, it's this whole idea of you can do something for a while and realize maybe that's not quite the right thing for you, and then you can move into a slightly different area of technology. And actually, if you learn to code and that's kind of what you want to do, and then actually you realize that coding isn't the only thing that you want to do, maybe you move into more of a testing kind of role, or maybe more of a project management kind of role. So all the jobs that I've kind of got on the screen here are roles that we have at our agency. And although everyone is very creative or very technical or a mix of the two, actually the variety of jobs that we've got between those kind of skills is really, really varied. So it could be writing code every day. It could be a software engineer or a hardware engineer building hardware. It could transition into the design side. So having an appreciation for how technology works really helps the designers use the tools that they have to build products that work really well and work in the way that you and I are kind of used to using those products. So the customer experience design, the user experience design, and the interface design, they're all really roles that, you have to be quite good at drawing and creating and creativity, but the technological backgrounds that you might have gives you a real edge over that kind of stuff as well.
How often, in your opinion, would you say that you meet someone who, does anyone exist where they are good at, the tech side of it, but they're also very creative. And, they've got the whole package, because I've never personally met anyone who can do that. That's why teams are so important, because you meet someone whose speciality is creativity and who, may never be able to write a line of code in their life, but they can come up with some amazing ideas and designs. And then they need the help of other people.
Yeah, definitely. I think, those people are kind of quite rare that are really good at both things. And as you say, that's why those teams work so well together. But, in my experience, it's kind of a spectrum. So, you might be really good at one thing, but you might enjoy something else, or vice versa. So I think, there's quite a spectrum of between creativity and technology, and there's loads of different kind of avenues that you can take. But again, I think the way to kind of get into it and to kind of really make yourself stand out is these tinkering and the side projects. And when you go for an interview for a job, the person that's just been interviewed before you, they've probably got an experience that's really similar, because that company is trying to hire for a particular role, for a particular type of person to do something. And so their education's probably similar, the companies they've worked for might be similar, and the skill sets they have might be similar. So the way to differentiate yourself and make yourself stand out is by all of that stuff that you've done outside of that, those little projects that you chip away at the weekend at home, that they're passion projects, they really interest you. And then when you talk to your next potential employer about them, you can talk with passion, and you can say, look, this is something I've created and I'm really interested in. And, yes, you need to have the skills to do the job, but employers want to know that you're passionate about that stuff as well. And how does it cross between, your professional life and what you enjoy? Because as I said earlier, if you can enjoy your work, it will just be a breeze, and it'll be a joy to go to work every day. So I guess sort of coming all the way back round, a few sort of lessons that I've kind of learned through that journey is that getting it right first time is pretty hard and is normally quite lucky. So if you end up in a role that you love, straight after university, that's amazing, but it's not necessarily going to happen. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't, because you also don't have to know what you want to do, and you don't have to know what you like until maybe you've experienced what you don't like. So not liking things is also helpful, because it'll help shape where you want to go and the kind of work you want to do, and the kind of companies that you want to work for, and the atmosphere and the environment that you want to work in as well. These are all important factors to you, choosing somewhere to work and, spending, let's face it, a lot of our time. We spend a lot of our time at work, and that's why the variety is great as well, and why I enjoy kind of the entrepreneurship route, because it means that I get to do lots of different things on different days with different teams of people, and use my experience and the variety of experience that I've had to kind of help those teams out and learn from them as well. But it doesn't really matter what you do. Again, it comes down to this effort and work and this balance. And there's, I think, a mechanical engineering equation around work, which is W equals F times D, which is work is force times distance. So the amount of work that you need to do is correlated to how much force you put in and how far you're trying to move something. So if I want to move something 10 meters, it takes me a bunch of force. If I want to move it 20 meters, it's going to take me twice the amount of force. Like, there's this balance, right? And what I put in is balanced to what I get out. So you're always going to need to put that effort in. So yeah, I guess that is that's about it. Hopefully that's been an interesting kind of little journey on my kind of career and where I came from. And yeah, I'd love to answer some of your questions and tell you a little bit more.
Chris, honestly, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for talking us through that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's move on to some questions from our viewers that have been sending them in. We've got plenty here. First one is from guest number 12. What inspired you to choose technology as a career?
That is a great question, actually, because that was a really interesting choice. So when I did my A-levels, I had a really weird set of A levels. So I did maths and I did design technology, but I also did music and ceramics. So I guess, this kind of hybrid between techie and creative. And I loved music, still love music. I play a couple of different instruments. And so when I came to choose what I wanted to do at university, it was actually really tough between music path and go to music school, or kind of follow the engineering path. And it was really, really, really tough to make that decision. But ultimately, I knew that if I followed the engineering path, I could still do music, maybe not as a job, but I could do it in my spare time. And I've played in bands since I was little, and I've kept that up. So I can still do that part that I really enjoy. But yeah, I chose to follow the technology part because I think I felt in my kind of heart of hearts, that's the thing that I was probably best at. And I used to love kind of building stuff on the computer. And as a kid, I took all my toys apart to figure out how they worked and put them back together. And sometimes they work again and sometimes they didn't. But yeah, I always knew that I loved technology, and that's what chose me down that particular path. But it was a tough choice.
A point I just want to make as well. I know you just mentioned A levels and GCSE choices. I think it's important to know for the people who are watching that, if you're in secondary school and you have an idea of what career you want to go forward and do, sometimes the school that you're in won't offer you, the best options to get to where you want to be. So just speaking from my personal experience, I wanted to go in and do journalism, but my school didn't offer anything near that. I had to try and pick my options as close as they could possibly be. So you've got to think around your dream career, the career that you want to go into. You've got to think around that and think, right, what components have I got available to me now in my education that I can go forward and do that will eventually help me? And it's the further education, which is why exactly Springpod is here. We're here to help you look forward to your future education and see, where can I go to best prepare myself for my future career. So that was just a point on A-levels and GCSE choices.
And it's never too late to change as well. Like, there's no one path that will take you from here to journalism, right? Mm-hmm. You can study different things. You halfway through your career, you could decide, I want to become a journalist and retrain and do this. And it will probably be great for whoever's employing you because you had all of this other experience around stuff that you've done before that. So, there's not one path through all this stuff.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's never too late. Right. Next question is from guest 588. What qualities do you think are most important in a developer?
Good question. What characteristics? So it's an eye for detail is really good. So, the technical aspect of it is really useful if you're good at kind of spotting little problems and you're very organized and you want to kind of make sure everything's kind of done in a set way, in a very kind of specific way. Because if you can do that, it will lead to less issues or bugs, as we call them, in the software. So the better you are at kind of like detail stuff, that's a really good quality. Software engineering development is also about problem solving. So being a good problem solver is really good. And there's lots of sort of, I would say, ways of approaching how we break down problems. So, when you start running a big piece of software, you don't I call it boiling the ocean. You don't try and boil the ocean all in one go. You take bits of it and you chunk it down and you kind of divide it down and divide and conquer that down into manageable chunks. So the ability to kind of see a problem and break it down into its individual components is also a great skill, I think, great characteristic.
Another question: what are your favorite and least favorite pieces of tech and why? That's a good one.
Ooh,
I'd say the battery in the back of my iPhone at the moment is atrocious, so that's probably mine.
Yeah. Well, I love my mobile phone. I love my iPhone. That is a great piece of tech, and it just lets me do so much stuff. It's awesome. Least favorite bits of tech. So I'm a bit biased because my agency kind of focuses on building great interfaces and great experiences for users. I hate any form of technology that's got like a really bad interface on, that's difficult to use, or
it's like a really clunky user interface. Yeah. What can you, I'm not sure if I should really ask you this, but can you think of any in particular? You can say no, but can you think of any sort of user interfaces in particular, that are just so horrible to use? Because we've all been there, trying to navigate our way through a piece of software that doesn't make any sense. The icons mean nothing, and it probably doesn't work. It will just crash.
Yeah, I mean, iconography is a great example of that, and maybe not a digital product, but like my washing machine, like it's just this like set of hieroglyphs. I don't know what any of them mean. I always use the same mode. I don't know if it's the right one or not. I just don't know. It's so confusing.
Fair point. Very fair point. I'll totally agree with you on that. Right. Guest 472 has asked, do you take part in environmentally friendly engineering? That's good. That's a really good question considering the current climate and, manufacturing products and stuff.
It is, yeah. So yeah, there's loads of stuff that we can do. I mean, environmentally friendly engineering from a software perspective, I guess it's a bit kind of tough to answer that, but from a company perspective, we obviously try and follow all the best practice around being as environmentally friendly as we can. We've been like a paperless or as paper-free as we can get office ever since I remember. There's a really if you're interested in this kind of stuff, there's a certification called B Corporation, and I would really encourage you, if you're interested in like environmental impact and ethical businesses, to go and look at B Corp certification. And that is a process that a business can go through to make sure that they're environmentally sound and they follow all these kind of processes. And it's something that we've started to look at. It's quite a long kind of process to go through, but that's something worth looking at.
Guest 714 has asked, how many different jobs do you think are able to link with technology and engineering?
An infinite number of jobs. I mean, yeah, there's so many. I
mean, just on that point as well, I mean, I think you'll find there will be a need for a technology-based job in every single business. Yeah. Every single one. There will always be a need for someone in a technological aspect one way or another.
Absolutely. And another thing that we do a lot of at Conjure is what we call digital transformation. So we work with businesses that maybe don't have so many technical people inside them. And so they need some extra support around that. And maybe they do things in very manual ways. And then we look at how we can kind of bring technology into them to make them more efficient, to make more money, to be able to open up to different markets, to sell more products, whatever it might be. There's always technology that can kind of come in and help there. And, there's still thousands of businesses around the world that do things in ways that can be optimized by technology. So yeah, every single sector and every different type of business can benefit from technical people inside them.
Guest 673 has asked, can you recommend or suggest some online resources to help those of us interested in a tech career?
Yes, there are lots, probably too many to mention. Maybe this is one of the things that I should put in the post video sort of Q&A with some links. There's on the kind of software side, there's loads of forums out there where you can be a part of a community and you can ask questions and you can answer questions and learn loads of stuff. So Stack Overflow is an amazing resource for that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's quite a lot. So I suggest that I put together a bit of a list that you can kind of have a look through afterwards. And
if anyone's particularly interested in, app development or coding, I tried it out personally. I used to do a bit, but Apple have Xcode playgrounds where you can develop and learn how to code with I think it's Swift now. Their new programming language, and it's totally free to use as well.
Yeah.
And for a layman like me, it actually works pretty well. So yeah, just off the top of my head, that was one.
Yeah, there's so the playgrounds is a great thing. All of the big kind of tech companies like Apple and Amazon and Google, they all offer this stuff 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 completely for free. If you want to learn or get started with this kind of stuff, it's usually completely free to get the tools, to access the resources, and all the documentation and help manuals and their communities as well. So yeah, there's loads of stuff that you can do.
Good. Right, we've got time for just 2 more. Guest 472 has asked, do you work with computing technology or engineering technology?
I guess it depends on how exactly you want to define both of those things. So I always call it software engineering, because I think there used to be this idea that software developers weren't really engineers, and engineers was a bit more like technical, or maybe it was more related to machinery and stuff like that. But I think there's so many principles that are the same no matter what sort of engineer you are, whether you're kind of working on software or hardware, that they've got very similar backgrounds. The implementation of them might be a little bit different, but kind of the skills that you learn and things will be the same. I think my background is more definitely in software. I have worked in companies where I've built hardware or built software that works at a really, really low level, so very close to the hardware. But most of my career has been in what we would call front-end software, so software that's really close to where the customer uses it. So it's a website, or it's a mobile app, or something like that.
And one final question from guest 169. What are your biggest priorities right now? I suppose, how has all the COVID situation affected the tech industry in your business? I know just before we went on air, actually, we were talking about, how much you've had a really, really busy week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been really lucky that actually, we work with a lot of customers and clients who are doing a whole bunch of products and building services that haven't been too badly affected. And so those projects have continued, and we've been able to continue working on those projects. Definitely, we've seen a little bit of impact. Some new clients that we were hoping to work with maybe have slowed down the kind of projects that they were hoping to start. But we're confident that they will pick those products and projects up again in the next few months. So yeah, we've definitely been affected. I think everyone's been affected, but also, business. There have been certain businesses that have done really well. So, like e-commerce, for example, has been an industry that's done really well from this, because everyone's at home and they still want to shop, so they're doing it online instead of going to the store.
And one final question from me: what do you think about this NHS tracing app debacle at the moment? I suppose it must be quite painful for you to sit there and watch this app technology be butchered in the media.
Yeah, I've definitely got some opinions on that. I'm not a big fan of the route that they've chosen to do it. I think there were some better options available there, but nevertheless, as long as it works, and as long as it helps keep the country safe, then it's good.
Absolutely. I bet you wish they came to you. Chris, honestly, it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy week to speak to all of us. Some great questions there from our viewers as well. Thank you so much for being here on Learn Lounge. And just as a reminder that we're raising money in aid of the Children's Trust. They're doing a lot to ensure that every child has a fighting chance to return to their normal lives from acquired brain injury. So every little bit helps. And if you want to donate, you can do so via the link that's on your screen now. Join us next week for our first employer masterclass with Capgemini, a global leader in consulting and tech services. We'll be joined by their early careers attraction manager, Dan Doherty, who will be delivering a session on personal branding for students. That's something that you definitely don't want to miss. From all of us here at Springpod and Learn Lounge, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.